Good afternoon, friends. So today we will be discussing angles and triangles. So now I want you to take a moment and think about what you may already know on angles and triangles. So you may know that an angle has a vertex and a ray. So let's go ahead and review. An angle is a shape formed by two rays. Now they share a common endpoint, and this angle contains two rays and one vertex. So, Mr. May, be thinking of you all, and we've had a long summer, we may not remember back to what we learned last year, but here we have a definition for vertex. So I want you to read it with me as I say it. A vertex is a point common to two rays of a triangle or two sides of a polygon. So I've put an arrow pointing to the vertex here on your screen. It's the area where the two rays meet on the side of the polygon. So we know that an angle has two rays. So a ray, again, say it with me as I say it, has one endpoint and goes infinitely in one direction. So it never stops, it just goes. Remember, a ray is infinite, it just keeps going. And we always have two, and we have one vertex. So now to the tough stuff, some types of angles. So our first angle I'm going to share with you today is an acute angle. Now, an acute angle is an angle that is greater than 0 degrees and less than 90 degrees. So that means it's no more than 90 degrees and it's no less than 0. So here on the bottom, I've given you 5 different types of angles. So thinking back to what we learned last year on angles, I'd like you to look at the screen and take a mental note and think which ones are not acute. Okay, so now that we've had some time to think about which ones are not acute and which ones are, we should have determined that number 2 is not an acute angle and number 5 is not an acute angle. Now you may already know what kinds of angles number 2 and 5 are, but we'll get into that later. So we know 1, 3, and 4 are acute angles because they show characteristics of being greater than 0 and less than 90 degrees. Our next angle is a right angle. And that is an angle that measures exactly 90 degrees. So a right angle is always 90 degrees. So looking at our pictures, the same pictures as before, which one might be a right angle? So we know 1, 3, and 4 are acute angles. Think to yourself, well, which one is a right angle? Okay, so now that you've had some time to figure out which one's a right angle, you should have chosen number 2. Now number 2 is a right angle because it measures exactly 90 degrees and it always will be 90 degrees. So let's try to think of a way to remember what a right angle looks like. Well, let's think back to the alphabet. It looks like a letter L. So a right angle is always going to measure 90 degrees, so that means it's always going to look the same. It's always going to be 90 degrees. Now it could be a backwards L or it could be a regular L, but it's always going to be 90 degrees. Another type of angle is an obtuse angle. Now this is an angle that measures greater than 90 degrees, but it's less than 180, so it's not a straight line. However, it is less than 180 degrees, but it's greater than 90. So it's not going to look like our friend Mr. Right Angle, and it's not going to look like our little acute angles. And let's think about acute angles as small and cute. Small is cute. And our right angles look like the L. So take a minute and look at the same set of angles again, and think to yourself, which one is an obtuse angle? So now that we've had some time to look at the angles, we know 1, 2, and 3 are not obtuse angles because 1, 3, and 4 are acute angles, and as we discussed, 2 is our right angle. So that leaves us with 5. So 5 is an obtuse angle because it's greater than 90 degrees, but it's less than 180. So now we also have types of triangles. So we have our obtuse, acute, and right angles, but we have types of triangles. So we have our types of angles and we have our types of triangles. So we're going to start off with an equilateral triangle. Now an equilateral triangle is a triangle with 3 congruent sides. So think to yourself, congruent. I think we've heard that before. But just in case, a little refresher, congruent means equal. And you're going to hear the word congruent a lot when we're talking about triangles. So let's put that in our brain and remember that congruent means equal. So we have 3 equal sides with an equilateral triangle. So something new that we're going to see is that when a side is equal to another side, they're going to have these lines on the triangle. So these marks tell us that the sides are equal. So we know that this is an equilateral triangle because all of our 3 sides are marked with this mark, telling us that they're equal or congruent. So let's try to remember we're going to say congruent now. We're moving on from equal and we want to say congruent. So another type of a triangle is an isosceles triangle. An isosceles triangle is a triangle with at least 2 congruent sides. Remember, congruent means equal. So a way that we can see that is we have these marks here. Remember, the marks tell us that the sides are equal. So we know that these 2 sides are equal because of the marks that are on them, or congruent because of the marks that are on them. Now, when a side is not congruent to another side, we're going to want to put these 2 lines so that we know that it's a different measure than the other 2 sides. And then we have our friend Mr. Right Angle. And we know that a right angle is 90 degrees. So we also have right triangles. So and a triangle only has one right angle that's 90 degrees. And you're going to see this little box in the corner, and that's going to indicate always that our triangle has a right angle in it. And we know that this L is 90 degrees. So that box always tells us that it's a right angle or it has 90 degrees. And then we have a scalene triangle. So this is a triangle that has no congruent sides, so none of the sides are equal to one another. We'll see none of those marks on it. And so if it has no congruent sides, that must mean that each side has different measures. And again, that's a scalene triangle. So now that we've reviewed our types of angles and types of triangles, we're going to go to the GeoGebra site, and we're going to play around with a little tool. So let's look at our instructions here. It says that we're going to drag point C to create the types of triangles. So we learned scalene, acute, isosceles, obtuse, equilateral, right. We just learned all that. So I want you to take some time and I want you to play around this tool that you see on your screen. So let's see here if I can slide it up for you all. So we're going to take point C. So right now we have a scalene acute. And I would like you to create an acute angle. So let's try to make an acute angle. And this time we're going to make it scalene. So we want no equal sides, which should be easy to do. So Mr. May has his up here. He has his acute scalene triangle. So remember, acute, small, right? Cute, small. Cute. Think of it as a cute little puppy, small, okay? And scalene, no equal sides. All right, so now we're gonna do one that's gonna be super fun, and we're gonna make an obtuse angle, okay? So I want you to make an obtuse. Don't worry about if it's isosceles, scalene, okay? I just want you to make that big obtuse angle. So remember, it's going to be greater than 90, but not 180. So we're not having a straight line, but I just want a big shape, okay? So now I want you to look at your screen with your obtuse angle, and I want you to see if you created a scalene obtuse from the sides, the measurements of the sides, or if you created an isosceles. Now an isosceles triangle it's a little tricky to do with an obtuse, but it can happen. So we have our 2 sides that are equal, and then our one side is not. So I want you to think to yourself, what would you put on that? How would you indicate that the one side is not equal to the others? So you should have thought that we would put the 2 lines there, and then we'd put the 1 mark on the sides that's congruent. And then here I'll create an obtuse scalene where we have no equal sides. Now remember, scalene, no equal. So last but not least, I would like you to create a right triangle. Now this is going to be a little tricky because you're going to have to get that exact measurement of 90 degrees. So here I have a right scalene triangle, which means it has no equal sides. Right? A lot of times when we see right angles, we're going to have two equal sides. If it's a perfect triangle, we're going to have our two equal sides. But I want you to see that we can have scalene right triangles. They're not always going to have those perfect sides. But if I wanted to create an isosceles one, it is possible, as you see here. So now that we have learned some different angles and we played around with our tool, our triangle tool, I'd like you to take some time and play around with the tool and try to create as many types of triangles, different types of triangles you can, okay? So I want you to be able to do a scalene, acute, isosceles, obtuse, equilateral. I want to see all of that thrown out, okay? So you're going to have about 5 minutes to do so, and this is for your time to play around and practice your angles and take note of what you're seeing, okay? So I want you to make sure that you're thinking, okay, so this has two equal sides, it's isosceles. This has no equal sides, so it's scalene, okay? So go ahead and take your 5 minutes and have fun playing around with the GeoGebra tool.